Facebook hit a major milestone on Tuesday, reaching 2 billion monthly users. For several months, the social network has been on the brink of the double billion mark, and today Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg made it official with a Facebook post stating, "As of this morning, the Facebook community is now officially 2 billion people. We're making progress connecting the world, and now let's bring the world closer together. It's an honor to be on this journey with you."
Right, as I've traveled around and seen a lot of different places, one theme has really stuck with me. Every great community has great leaders. So think about this. A church doesn't just come together by itself, right? It has a pastor who looks out for the well-being of the congregation, and if someone hits hard times, they're in charge of making sure that people have the food and shelter they need. But a Little League team has a coach, or who motivates the kids and helps teach them how to hit better. Right? Leaders set the culture, or they inspire us, they motivate us, they give us a safety net, and they take care of us. And every one of you does that for your communities.
Computers froze today at hospitals, government offices, and multinational corporations held for ransom by cyber crooks using a program called Petya.
The malware crippled computers across Ukraine, Russia, the UK, most of Europe, and the US, disabling a vast range of automated systems in banks, an airport, a construction company, a major law firm, and even grocery stores where customers were left with no way to pay. Corporate titans were hit too, including New Jersey-based Merck Pharmaceuticals, the Danish shipping company Moller-Maersk, and the Russian oil giant Rosneft. So who done it? Carl Herberger from Radware Cybersecurity.
What do you suspect?
So the suspicions are the suspicions are that this is a criminal motive. Why? Because they're asking for money.
$300 to be exact. Here's what an infected computer tells the user to do. Pay up in the cryptocurrency Bitcoin to get your files back. Cyber attacks, say the experts, are here to stay, especially ransomware, and they could get much more sinister.
You can imagine a future where maybe, conceptually, they are able to infect a defibrillator or an insulin pacemaker or an automobile or something like this, which is the ultimate ransom.
That's a terrifying prospect.
And I think it's a not unforecastable future.
The experts also say that there was a software fix available to protect against Petya, but not everybody has been keeping their cybersecurity up to date. Today's attack, Anthony, should be a wake-up call.
According to a Ukrainian federal agency, on Tuesday, the automatic radiation monitoring system at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant was the target of a cyber attack, causing monitoring to be carried out manually. The Agency for Control of the Chernobyl Exclusion Zone said in a statement, "Due to the temporary disconnection of the Windows system, the radiation monitoring in the area of the industrial site is being carried out manually." The statement went on to say that all technological systems of the station operate in the normal mode, but that in connection with the cyber attack, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant website is not working.
The U.S. and Israel have teamed up to tackle cybersecurity. White House Homeland Security and Counterterrorism Advisor Tom Bossert announced the new partnership on June 26, while speaking at Cyber Week, an annual cybersecurity conference in Tel Aviv. He said that the two countries would create a new working group, focusing on key cyber issues and encouraging international cooperation. Also speaking at the conference, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that his country experiences dozens of cyber attacks each month. As a result, the Israeli government has created what he called a cyber net, featuring dozens of companies working together on security issues. Netanyahu, teasing the U.S. partnership, said that Israel is now ready to cooperate with other countries. The new U.S.-Israel working group will reportedly begin meeting as soon as this week.
Now to a different story. Mass arrests of suspected members of the Islamic State terror group were carried out by Spanish police. 6 suspects were arrested, 4 in the Spanish island of Mallorca, 1 in Britain, and another 1 in Germany. The man arrested in Britain was a 44-year-old Salafist imam who led the group and was wanted by several countries. Intelligence have been tracking the cell's activity since 2015, when police detected videos promoted by the imam that documented the recruitment, indoctrination, and sending of a young Muslim resident in Spain to Syria.
Next to the rush hour nightmare here in New York City, an accident in the subway plunging passengers into the dark. Hundreds of people on board, some of them suffering injuries before getting back to the surface. The trouble rippling across the subway system, delaying thousands of riders on their way to work.
Tonight, underground rail chaos. Hundreds of panicked New York City subway passengers flee a train derailment in dark tunnels filled with smoke.
I saw the power went off, the train started jumping up and down.
You could see sparks outside the window. The train just started like banging against the walls of the tunnel. It was going up and down. It was sort of like a runaway roller coaster.
Terrifying moments for the hundreds on board as the packed downtown A train derailed just before 10 Tuesday morning, taking it off the tracks before slamming into a wall at the 125th Street station in Harlem.
Is everybody all right?
Chaos and confusion as many riders began to panic, not knowing what was going on. Some concerned the train cars may have become engulfed.
Smoke, fire started coming off from the sides, sparkling everywhere.
Officials say 2 cars of a jam-packed A train came off the tracks, careening into a wall when the emergency brakes engaged. The side of this car ripped open, tracks and signals damaged.
We gotta go this way! That's where the smoke is coming from.
Smoke created by trash on the tracks catching fire. People knocking out windows to get air and get out, using their cell phones as flashlights.
The train bucked forward, it bucked backwards, and in the process of doing that, 2 of the cars derailed. They scraped the side of the wall.
In all, 800 passengers get to safety. At least 34 are treated for minor injuries, mostly smoke inhalation.
I honestly thought it was a terrorist attack.
This comes as the nation's busiest transit system is under fire for long delays and cancellations, frustrating riders and highlighting a crumbling underground infrastructure. While crews are still on scene, service has been partially restored here at this station, though investigators still want to know who hit the brakes and why. They say it doesn't appear to be a failure of parts or equipment.
A helicopter has tried to bomb Venezuela's Supreme Court in a ratcheting up of the country's political crisis. Officials say the aircraft fired 15 shots at the Interior Ministry and dropped 4 grenades on the court. An army officer, believed to have seized the helicopter, issued this video statement.
Somos una coalición entre funcionarios militares.
He says, we're a coalition of military officials, police and civilians in search of balance and against this transitional criminal government we don't belong to or have any particular political affiliation.
No pertenecemos ni tenemos.
We're nationalists, patriots and institutionalists.
Somos nacionalistas, patriotas e institucionalistas.
The country's president, Nicolás Maduro, called it an attack by terrorists seeking a coup. Earlier, there were more violent clashes between the National Guard and opposition protesters. For more than 2 months, there have been almost daily demonstrations against Maduro's leftist government. Maduro has warned that he and his supporters will take up arms if his socialist government is violently overthrown.
Dozens of people are said to have been killed in a suspected US-led coalition airstrike in eastern Syria, which hit an ISIL-run prison. The London-based Syrian Observatory Monitoring Group claims around 40 prisoners and 12 militants were killed. The facility was near the city of Mayadeen in Deir al-Zur province, which is where it's believed self-styled Islamic State has moved most of its leaders away from besieged Raqqa. Meanwhile, Kurdish fighters are continuing to advance on Islamic State positions within the city of Raqqa. Fighters from the People's Protection Units, the YPG, claim to have uncovered tunnels used by IS after retaking new areas on the western edge of the city. The YPG is part of the US-backed Syrian coalition, which began its assault on the city earlier this month after a long campaign to isolate IS. According to the London monitoring group, the coalition fight to oust the militants from in and around Raqqa are said to have cost the lives of nearly 700 civilians so far this year. A spokesman for the coalition has said following recent airstrikes, it's looking into casualty reports.
According to the Syrian Presidential Media Office, President Bashar al-Assad says Syrians won't forget Russian support for the country. He made the remarks while visiting the Russian-run Hmeimim air base in Syria's northern city of Latakia since 2015. Assad reviewed the latest military weapons and gears at the base, and he also praised Russian soldiers and pilots for helping their brothers of the Syrian army against terrorists. Assad's visit comes at a sensitive time, with the White House warning of a potential preparations for another chemical weapons attack by Syrian government forces.
As the United States pressures China to enforce United Nations sanctions on its ally North Korea, Washington is concerned that Russia could provide support to Pyongyang and fill any vacuum left by Beijing, U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Nikki Haley said on Tuesday. While Washington has urged countries to downgrade ties with Pyongyang over its nuclear and ballistic missile programs, a cross-border ferry service was launched in May between North Korea and neighboring Russia. Haley said, "We just need to keep the pressure on China, we need to keep our eyes on Russia, and we need to continue to let the North Korean regime know we are not looking for regime change, we just want them to stop the nuclear activity."
Qatar is asking the United States to help lift the recent boycott of that country. The action is led by Saudi Arabia. Qatar's foreign minister met with Secretary of State Rex Tillerson yesterday. Tillerson wants the Saudis to continue to talk in good faith. The Saudis want Qatar to comply with their list of 13 demands by this weekend.
In the foreign minister's first U.S. interview, our Margaret Brennan asked about accusations by the Saudis, their allies, and President Trump that Qatar finances terrorism.
President Trump stood at the White House and said at the very highest levels of the Qatari government there is support for terrorism. Was he wrong?
Well, it's absolutely wrong. Qatar is committed to countering terrorism.
So when the president says at the very highest levels of your government, you're saying that doesn't happen anymore?
That doesn't happen. That never happened. I'm sorry. It's not doesn't happen anymore. That's never happened. And we'll never accept it. The president was wrong? It was wrong, yes.
So
Senate Foreign Relations Chairman Bob Corker says he will not approve U.S. weapons sales to any Gulf countries until there's a path to settle the diplomatic crisis. Now, that would jeopardize President Trump's $110 billion arms deal with Saudi Arabia.
According to a recent article in a Communist Party journal, the Chinese military garrison is taking on a more active role, letting the People's Liberation Army conduct drills and war games in the territory. The article comes amid speculation that Beijing may send its prized aircraft carrier to Hong Kong in a show of military might, which has not been seen since it made the territory a special administrative region. The article called the PLA's 6,000-troop garrison key to defending Hong Kong.
Engineers at MIT are creating drones that will be able to both fly and drive. They are calling them quadcopters. According to TechRadar.com, the engineers published a paper that describes a system of 8 quadcopters that can operate within a tiny city, complete with parking spaces, no-fly zones, and landing pads. Brandon Araki, the lead author of the paper, stated, "The ability to both fly and drive is useful in environments with a lot of barriers, since you can fly over ground obstacles and drive under overhead obstacles."
Army of robots have been called to protect our service members from dangerous pathogens. Based in San Antonio, Xenex manufactures light strike germ zapping robots that use UV light to sterilize rooms. These robots are found in 300 medical centers across the world, including 41 VA hospitals, 5 Department of Defense facilities. We want to talk about it right now. We've got this robot in the studio. We're going to bring in Xenex CEO Morris Miller. Morris, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you for bringing in all of this. The robot, you've got this new piece here that you're going to explain to us. This is a light strike germ zapping robot to kill powerful bacteria and viruses, including Ebola, MRSA, and norovirus. Tell us how this works.
So inside the middle of this chamber is a xenon bulb. When you pulse it with high power, it puts out broad spectrum, highly intense UV light, and basically it will destroy the pathogens that would otherwise make people sick. So when you think about hospitals, about 1 in 20 patients get these infections. By disinfecting the room before they go in, you're able to protect troops, you're able to protect VAs, the people that go to the VAs, and keep them healthy.
After a ruling by the European Court of Justice on the case of a French man who claimed that a hepatitis B vaccine caused him multiple sclerosis, many headlines across Europe read vaccines can be blamed for illness without scientific proof. In response, alarmed experts have pointed out that no link between the vaccine and MS has ever been scientifically established and have expressed concerns that the Luxembourg-based court's decision will result in a large number of spurious lawsuits. However, experts on liability law remain divided on what the court's decision, announced on June 21st, will mean for medical product liability in Europe. Some claim the decision balances individuals' rights, while others worry that the ruling ignores certain kinds of scientific evidence.
Scientists say they erased certain memories in the brains of snails. A new report published in the journal Current Biology explains how the research could pave the way for new anxiety treatment in humans. Neuroscientists said they found 2 different kinds of memories stored on a single neuron belonging to a marine snail. These memories are called associative and non-associative. In humans, traumatic experiences create both types. Associative memories contain important information about the event, like where it happened and how. Non-associative memories store details not directly related to the event, but that can still trigger symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. For this new study on snails, scientists blocked certain molecules in order to choose which non-associative memories to delete without damaging the associative ones. One study author said by using this method, quote, "We may be able to develop drugs that can treat anxiety without affecting the patient's normal memory of past events."
A virtual reality program allows interior designers to make structural changes before actual construction. How is it done? Here's the answer.
A new virtual reality program aims to take the guesswork out of interior design, letting you step inside before it's even been built. Called Inspation, it was launched by Swiss-based researchers and uses off-the-shelf VR tech. Plans are quickly imported into the digital model and recreated as a full-size 3D immersive virtual space. In buildings like hospitals where layout is vital, Inspation could save both time and money. Once inside the virtual space, a doctor can test the position of all equipment in the operating theatre to find the optimal place. Other setups include helping shop designers see how customers will interact within a space, such as the placement of products. Software can be used by multiple designers, meeting up in the virtual space even when in different countries. Inspation is now being offered to companies to help turn their virtual designs into reality.
The agency in charge of U.S. border security plans to start building prototypes for President Donald Trump's proposed wall with Mexico later this summer. The acting deputy commissioner of Customs and Border Protections said Tuesday that 4 to 8 companies will get contracts for prototypes in San Diego. They could be models for the roughly 2,000-mile border. Companies will have 30 days to complete the models. Trump's budget proposal for 2018 includes $1.6 billion for 74 miles of wall in Texas's Rio Grande Valley and San Diego. Currently, there are 654 miles of fencing.
Philippine citizens may need to start exercising their vocal cords. CNN has reported that the country's House of Representatives has approved a bill requiring members of the public to sing the country's national anthem, Lupang Hinirang, quote-unquote, with fervor whenever it is played publicly. Those who are convicted of violating the proposed law could face public censure, fines between $1,000 to $2,000, and up to a year in prison. The measure did not define how it would qualify whether or not a citizen sang the anthem with enough fervor. Marilyn Alante, one of the bill's sponsors, told CNN that the goal of the bill is to instill patriotism and respect.
Yale University has sued the state of Connecticut over rules it says limit the number of gender-neutral bathrooms it can designate on campus. The Ivy League school said in the lawsuit it wants to designate all single-occupant restrooms at its law school as gender-neutral. But the plan would run afoul of the state building code, which does not count gender-neutral bathrooms when it assesses whether a public building has enough toilets. The suit was filed on Friday in Connecticut Superior Court in New Haven after the university received complaints from law school students. Yale has asked the state to drop requirements that single-user restrooms have an assigned gender label.
A federal judge agreed to review the constitutionality of a U.S. State Department policy on Tuesday of refusing to grant passports to people who identify as neither male nor female. In November, U.S. District Judge R. Brooke Jackson directed the State Department to reconsider its binary-only gender passport policy. The case in point was that of Navy veteran Dan Zim. Zim is an intersex Colorado resident who sued the federal government for refusing to issue a passport because it requires an applicant to denote either male or female gender. According to a motion filed on the plaintiff's behalf by the Lambda Legal Defense Fund, asking Jackson to reopen the case after conducting its own court-ordered review, the State Department last month again denied Zim's application.
On Tuesday, workers installed a Ten Commandments monument outside the Arkansas Capitol, 2 years after the privately funded statue was approved on state grounds. A 2015 law required the state to allow the display near the Capitol, and a state panel last month gave final approval to its design and location. The American Civil Liberties Union said it plans to file a lawsuit in federal court challenging the display, calling it an unconstitutional endorsement of religion by the state.
Gusty winds have been a major problem for the Brian Head fire in Utah that has already burned more than 50,000 acres. Today, winds could gust as high as 30 miles an hour, making it even more dangerous. This fire has already consumed 13 homes and has forced the evacuation of 1,500 people in the southwestern part of the state. Firefighters work to put out some hot spots in the southern part of the fire. If that succeeds, residents would be able to return to the ski town of Brian Head. Crews try to restore communication lines destroyed by the flames. Internet service, phones, and cell phone towers have all been affected. Someone using a torch tool to burn weeds is believed to have started this fire. More than 1,600 personnel are fighting the big blaze. The Brian Head fire is just one of 20 big wildfires out west.
Rub-a-dub-dub, one elephant in the tub. A calf at the Pittsburgh Zoo took her first bath, and it's pretty clear she loved it. A far cry from when she first arrived, taken away from her mother, Sini, when the adult elephant was unable to produce milk to care for the youngin'. Not long after, the unnamed calf runs over to the tiny pool for a washdown, so excited she can hardly stand. While zoo staff hose her down, the baby splish-splashes around, even drinking the water using her trunk. Since her first bath, the zoo upgraded to a bigger swimming pool, and it looks like the perfect size. For now.